Beautiful morning, everyone. My name is Khaled Habib. I have the pleasure to be with you today and inshallah for the coming to the end of this week on the third EU-UfM Water Investment Policy Forum organized in the framework of the 2021 Cairo Water Week. Now, this topic is quite a very interesting one and a very challenging one. Over the years, I think we've been like always enjoying everything about the water and the abundance of water, but then all of a sudden, like we read lots of the strategists across the globe, they tell us that the next war is going to be on water. It's not going to be on oil or whatever, it's going to be on water. And this means that every nation in the world has to really manage its resources carefully, has to increase its resources by different means. And that's why in almost every country in the world there are lots of programs, lots of strategies and initiatives related to water reservation, water protection, increasing the resources and so on. But then, as you all know, there are so many devils that lie in small details. So there are always major differences and gaps between the strategies and the implementation. There are so many cases where everybody is working so hard, but things are not aligned. There's never one big value chain that covers all the activities, starting with the strategies, with the vision, where they want to go, what kind of programs will be there, and then all the components coming together. So when we talk about desalination, big projects for desalination, it has to be linked with energy resources. Do we have enough energy resources? Do we have renewable energy resources? How does it fit with the environment? How does it fit with dire needs for different societies and countries in the third world or the developing countries, where we have major issues related again to our resources and about really getting rid of major problems related to poverty and so on? The priorities, the sequence, what comes first, the funding, the investment, and then comes even something more important and more crucial when we talk about the small details, when we talk about the policies, the ecosystem altogether, what happens on the ground. So there are so many cases where we have very solid initiatives coming from presidents, from global bodies, and the EU is doing a great job in this area, and our country is now working on 1 million projects. But then in the implementation, we face so many problems on the ground. Things are not really aligned. And then we go to something, and maybe one of our very dear and distinguished guests today will tell us about this more when we have our panel discussions. We have something we call like the deep, not the deep state, I call it the deep citizen. So sometimes we've got people in the system, although the system is there, the minister, the senior officials, the senior managers, everybody wants things to happen, and we have the money and we have the funds and everything, somehow it stops somewhere. These dark areas, these black holes where things stop all of a sudden. And then we start another project, and then we start the third project. This is where we're going to talk over the coming 2 days. We want to make things happen on the ground. We want our dreams to be realized. When we talk about investment, we need to make sure that this investment is really realized on the ground. The expenditure is done in an intelligent way. It's done in a certain way that things get aligned. They're not like split into different zones and so on. So I think we're going to have a couple of very rich days. I know we have lots of people with us online, so that's a great thing. And I'm seeing so many familiar faces in the place. We've got senior people also from the banking sector, from the EU, lots of people who are here to tell us we can get things done. So hopefully by the end of this great event, inshallah, we're going to have like action items, things to happen on the ground. I don't want to talk more. I have great lists of guests and speakers of great value with us over the coming 3 days. So let me first introduce my panelists. I'm going to start with keep our dear guest, Mrs. Thani, last, because she's going to be the first one presenting over here. So we have the pleasure of having with us Mr. Al-Mu'taz Abadi, Managing Director, UfM Water. Mr. Mu'taz, great to have you here. And of course we have with us Mr. Ayman Ayad, the Water and Utilities Sector Manager, EU Delegation in Cairo. And then allow me to introduce our first speaker and our first guest, Mrs. Tahani Salid, Head of Central Department for External Cooperation, Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, Egypt. Please, the floor is yours.
I don't know if it's working. Is it working? Perfect. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you, dear guests, for being there today in spite of all the odds related to the COVID-19 pandemic and the difficulty to come in presence physically and attend with us. Excellency Ambassador Nasser Kamen is Secretary General of UfM Secretariat. Excellency Ambassador Christian Berger, Head of the EU Delegation to Egypt. Distinguished guests, participants, friends and colleagues. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you all in the 4th edition of the Cairo Water Week. This important event is becoming more and more recognized as one of the most important water events in the region that we were determined to continue holding on a yearly basis in spite of all constraints, especially COVID-19. Since the second edition of the Cairo Water Week, both the European Union and the Union for the Mediterranean were keen to support the week with providing an annual platform for policymakers and stakeholders to discuss how to further improve water investment policies in southern Mediterranean countries within the framework of the Cairo Water Week. I would like here to seize the occasion to express Egypt's appreciation for all the efforts exerted by the European Union, the UfM, and all development partners to support the water sector in Egypt. In continuation of these great efforts, I'm delighted to welcome you all in the EU-UfM Water Investment Policy Forum 2021. This year's forum is held to support progress toward achieving water security in southern Mediterranean by identifying ways to enhance the integration of water investment in post-COVID-19 recovery packages through developing support programs, sharing lessons learned in the development and implementation of large water investment plans in the context of climate change with a focus on desalination in order to start developing a regional roadmap for improving water investment policies in the region. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the southern Mediterranean region's freshwater resources are under severe pressure and are facing significant risks to their sustainability due to the overexploitation, climate change, and intra-state competition of their use that extends beyond the region's boundary. Moreover, the present state of the freshwater resources on which the region depends could undermine its ability to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals, a number of which deal directly or indirectly with water. Nevertheless, the COVID-19 emergency has emphasized the critical role of water utilities for our societies. Water utilities had to rethink organizational structure and to include and improve both risk management approaches and information collection procedures to be able to cope with the crisis. In the southern Mediterranean, about 8.8 million people lack of access to basic drinking water services, and 15.9 people lack of basin sanitation services. But trends are positive compared to 2019, where respectively 6.8 and 13.3 million people had access to sanitation and water access services. Wastewater treatment is not enough practice in some southern Mediterranean countries and need consistent improvements. This might have implication on seawater quality, highlighted as a critical issue in the Mediterranean basin that needs to enlarge and enforce environmental protection in marine and maritime areas. All these challenges in the regions urge us to find quick and efficient solutions to achieve water security and to bridge the knowledge and research gap between the north and south of the Mediterranean. This cannot be achieved without sustainable financing. The UfM financial strategy for water clearly lines out that there is a significant funding gap for water management in the Mediterranean region to achieve the water-related SDGs, to uphold the human rights to safe drinking water and sanitation. UfM member states need to work both on improving the management of current water-related expenditures and on raising additional financial resources if the objectives of the UfM water agenda are to be achieved. On the national level, the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, in coordination with all ministries concerned with the management and use of water, has formulated the National Water Resources Plan 2017-2037. Based on the concept of integrated water resources management through 4 pillars, namely improving water quality, rationalizing water uses, developing water resources, and improving the enabling environment. This plan comprises a set of procedures that have been developed in line. Its implementation requires huge investment estimated at 900 billion Egyptian pounds, which is about 50 billion US dollars, which could be increased to 100 billion US dollars. Egypt is exerting great efforts in order to benefit from every drop of water through the implementation of various efficient irrigation improvement programs by moving from flood to modern irrigation, improving infrastructure, providing equitable water distribution, improving on-farm water management, changing cropping patterns, reducing losses by redesigning and lining canals, rainwater harvesting, encouraging research and development of low-cost desalination techniques, and developing new species of crops resistant to water scarcity and high temperature. This is expected to increase agricultural productivity and farmers' income and to contribute in achieving both water and food security. Moreover, several major projects have been implemented in the field of agricultural wastewater reuse with a total treatment capacity of 15 million meters cubed per day, such as Bahr al-Baqar drain treatment plant and El Hammam treatment plant, in addition to 430 intermediate mixing stations, as well as flash floods and shore protection projects. According to the IPCC report, the Nile Delta in Egypt is counted as one of the world's extreme vulnerable hotspots. Sea level rise will have a direct and critical impact on Egypt's infrastructure and development along the low coastal lands. As you all know, Egypt relies on the Nile Delta for prime agricultural land. Accordingly, coastal inundation and saline intrusion will have a direct and critical impact on Egypt's entire economy. The number of extreme weather events inducing casualties and economic losses have increased significantly in Egypt over the last 10 years. These extreme events have flooded major cities, destroyed infrastructures, and disturbed economic activities. Consequently, a GCF project entitled Enhancing Climate Change Adaptation in the North Coast of Egypt, aiming to support adaptation efforts, is currently under implementation. The project objective is to reduce coastal flooding risks in Egypt's north coast due to the combination of projected sea level rise and more frequent and intense extreme storm events. The projects will also support the development of an integrated coastal zone management plan for the north coast. The ministry's different entities also continue to take all necessary measures to remove infringements of the Nile River, canals, and drains in coordination with all concerned agencies in Egypt. With regards to the legislative dimension, the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation has drafted the new Water Resource and Irrigation Law, which aims to improve water resources management and to protect the water network from all forms of infringements. The Parliament finally approved this law, and its executive regulations are being prepared. Finally, let me conclude by confirming that regional cooperation, information and knowledge exchange, and policy coherence are fundamental in the water sector and critical for the achievement of the SDG 6 on water and sanitation. This applies even more for countries of the Mediterranean, as they have similar water resources problems and are exposed to similar drivers and pressures, such as climate change, increasing water scarcity, population dynamics, and migration. Let's elaborate together on this important topic and pave the way for regional cooperation and sustainable and efficient financing for the water sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Tahani Sleep. Thank you very much for a very rich presentation. Let me just highlight some key words we've listened to right now. So one of the most important things you mentioned right now, it's again this full value chain. You're mentioning that there are lots of issues related to the sewage, the water treatment, and it takes us back again to the level of pollution, it takes us back to the waters of the seas. So we cannot handle things in isolation. You mentioned something which is very positive. Once again, it's about the trends. They are improving. We were in a very bad place, I would say, over the past few years. And of course, I'm sure lots of you are reading about what Egypt has been doing with, we call it Haya Karima. The main, the real definition for it in English would be like, it's not a decent life, it's a life of pride for the people. So major projects done in this area to improve the quality of living for Egyptians everywhere. But then you mentioned something also very important. There's a new law that has been approved. Now, when we talk about these executive procedures for it, that's where the fear usually lies, to make sure it's really happening on the ground. So I think that's another big challenge. And then you mentioned something else also about there are so many, let's say, factors that are not really within our hands. It's a global field. The landscape is quite challenging. So let me take it to our dear speaker, Al-Mu'taz Abadi, Managing Director, UfM Water. And if you just, if you'd like to come over here, please. And I want to listen from your side about the landscape. How do you see the big picture altogether? Please.
Thank you, and sorry to take your place. So I am Al-Mu'taz Abadi. I am the Water Managing Director, and I am very happy to be here with you. Coming here is a very good journey, but it started since we concluded the last and the second UfM EU water investment, where we start to prepare for this event from that point, which was 20-something October last year. The fact that we are coming here today is the fact that we are in this agreement with my great moderator that water is only seen as a source of war in the future. Yes, it could be, but we believe at the Union for the Mediterranean that water can be an element of peace, and water can be also an element to bring people together around the table to discuss their woe, because absolutely we are on a water woe, not because we are not able to manage our water resources, but also because of the nature, because of the climate change. And every day we live, water are going to be scarce. And also every day we live, we have more demand on water issue. So with this formula that we understand at the Union for the Mediterranean, that we need to be proactive. To be proactive in the water sector, it not only requires us to produce more water, which is something that we have to do. We have to produce more water for our citizens through non-conventional means. One of them is desalination, and we are here to discuss one of the topics about desalination. One of them is the best use of our water resources, to invest on the non-revenue water. We have 1 cubic meter, we want to send it to the home. It should at least reach home 1 cubic meter or 900 cubic meter, 0.9 cubic meter. And this is, we call it non-revenue water. The second part of the story is not only this integrated water resource management, is the financial capacity of those people who manage this situation. I know since I was 28 years old, I am working as an advisor to ministers many times. And I know that the Minister of Water, when he sits on the cabinet, the Minister of Finance don't like to see his face. Why? Because he said, this is the guy who take all my money. But in terms of other perspective, no. The water minister is the most important minister in the cabinet. Why? Because he is the one who creates jobs, the one who make the tourist sector working, the one who make the environment sustainable, the one who make also young people contribute to their economy. So from the perspective that of the Union for the Mediterranean, enhanced regional cooperation, water was used as a mean. In terms of enhancing the socio-economic situation for the citizen, water is there. And in terms of responding to the climate change that we are facing now, and this is the hot potato, water is there. So you should be ready to this heavy burden to understand how the water will ensure our future. Not because of biological demand. وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. نعم, لأنه أجسادنا, our body cannot survive without water, and also our economy cannot survive without water. So with this, we designed the program today. We are online with many participants. I knew that because I was following minute by minute that we got more than 150 registered participants, and we have many speakers. We were very happy to see the interest of all international organizations, IFIs, also our partner from the north and our partner from the south. Welcome, Mr. Bassem Saleh and Marwan Al-Ghali from Inward Dam. I am very happy to see you also here with us. And today you will hear from our distinguished speakers about the issue, and the most important thing, how to link the challenging situation in the Mediterranean and specifically in the Eastern South Mediterranean into the sphere of the Euro-Mediterranean cooperation, and also how we will contribute in the future for the global development agenda in water sector. With my friend Ali Moussine, we are going to be in Malta also to do the Mediterranean Water Forum, to go to Dakar. So we need to take this recommendation into Dakar to be part of the process toward saving the world by working together, not fighting together in terms of water. The last point, I will, because we are in Egypt, I'm very happy, Tahani, to see your action plan and strategy in water, that it's really aligned with what you had contributed to what we call it UfM water agenda. This is, I think, for my Secretary General Nasser Kamel, is another example that the work that we are doing around table, we can see it not on ink on paper, we can see it also in the member state national development plan, which is absolutely something very good. We call it doing more by exerting less. And this is, if you want to do it alone, I think it will cost more money. But for the UfM Secretariat, without your contribution, Tahani, and your team, we are not in a position to be here. We are not in a position to say that we have a UfM water agenda. With this, I will shut up and give the floor to the right people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Al-Mu'taz Abadi. Now, a couple of keywords. I love what you mentioned. I did not mention this, that one of the great things finally in Egypt after so many years, we do have strategies and they're linked to visions and with real dimensions for implementation. That's of great value. And you mentioned so many things that would make us, Mu'taz, you made us feel a bit jealous, because they're great projects bringing the whole world together. We have a saying here for people who are in Egypt, they know we had a very famous character in the football field. He was a president for a club, and he had this saying, a very famous saying, I have to say it in Arabic. He said, "Ana istafadtu." So from our perspective, we usually want to see what's the direct impact for us over here. And that's why I want to give the floor right now to my dear friend Ayman Ayed to tell us the landscape from a local perspective over here. What do we want to achieve? Because Al-Mu'taz mentioned something of great value. It's that the Minister of Finance says, like, don't come bug me all the time asking for money. But that's going to be investment, and investment means there is return on investment. How can we shape this?
Thank you. Thank you, Khaled. Thank you, Mu'taz and Tahani. I think from the EU side, it's a three pieces puzzle. So we have strategies, we have master plans, and finally the investment. I think today's forum is about how to connect all these elements together. The government in Egypt is, I think, a regional hub for integrated water resource management. Recently, the government has launched several national programs, Haya Karima, the canal rehabilitation, the desalination project, and rural sanitation programs. Massive projects, of course, that requires massive finance, and everyone has to be a part of that. It's not only the governments or the development finance, but also the private sector. I think the future and the region and all the worldwide, people are looking into sustainable means of finance, how to involve different actors, the private sector, how to encourage private sector to be part of the investment packages in the water sector, which have been, let's say, not, let's say, a first destination for the private sector to support, mainly because of maybe the social aspects, the challenges on the cost recovery, and so on and so forth. And that's why the development side, international financing institution, the EU, among others, are trying to find a way to reconnect the two parts. Today, I think, looking into the region, the Mediterranean region, where although they don't share the same river basins, for example, not part of the Nile Basin, but they share the same challenges. Water scarcity, this region is among the most scarce and arid regions in the world, would be most affected by weather and climate change, droughts. So common challenges requires common solutions. So addressing the topic of investment, integrated investment planning, wastewater reuse, or reuse in general, desalination, all that across the Mediterranean region are common challenges, and there could be common solutions for that. Although, of course, every country has its own specificities, own requirements, own architecture, but a general landscape that could be achieved. And that's why the UfM with the EU, together with the new water investment strategy, are looking to find ways to build let's say, a complete sphere to provide different solutions. Because part of it is investment, and as I said, not only concessional finance, sovereign finance and commercial finance and role of private sector, while ensuring that the end beneficiaries, especially in, let's say, on the social aspect, are well respected, that people who are benefiting or will be recipient for these projects will not suffer from the consequences of maybe a tariff or a cost that is related. But still, it's not only about investment and securing funds. It's also about the policies, how to have integrated policies, how to have all stakeholders under one umbrella and one objective to move to the optimal goal, which is the adequate delivery and safe delivery of services, and also to have it sustainable. I think that's why the discussions and the work around the strategies has to be also integrated and linked to investment. You have to go hand in hand. And I like the case that Dr. Tahani mentioned about Haya Karim, because this is one of the few cases that a program, a national program that's implemented at a national level, it targets different aspects. It's water, wastewater, it's municipalities, roads, electricity. It's also about housing, everything, an integrated thing. And that's actually should be the nucleus of any development, is to have an integrated approach, either in a village area or a basin area. That's how things are done. And we are glad that the government took the first initiative in that. And I think this is a case once, let's say, its results are clear to the public, and its results be clear, that could be even disseminated on the regional level, that could be followed. So, and I hope that today's discussions could help us to find a way and to have real recommendation, because from our side as the EU, we are a development agency. We provide finance together with the European financing institutions. So recommendations on how to improve our financing mechanisms, how to link it with national strategies, how to ensure that the solutions are localized at every case would be crucial, especially if they are provided a priori. So today's discussion would really help us to shape our programming and formulation in the future. That's why we'll be very much interested to hear your challenges. What do you see, let's say, from your perspective, are the solutions? How to really connect these dots? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayman. So many very important points you mentioned right now. One of them, for example, we have the resources, but the challenge is really to work them out. Common issues, common solutions, best practices everywhere. We have to break some taboos, because from every country perspective, I want the maximum for myself. But I think that people coming together under the UFM, under the EU coming together, means there is this willing to share things to do it properly. The investment part is very important. Of course, you know better than me, there were so many programs. In a previous life, I was heading General Electric across the Middle East for HR and emerging markets, and we had this program where we would go to the poorest countries in the world, the Gavi program, and there were means of funding, very intelligent. We had GE Capital, for example, which would provide the funds on long term. So the private sector, the multinationals, would be interested by different means. I'm very happy to have with us over here a dear friend and a very senior person, Ms. Lamis Nigm, and she is the senior advisor for the governor for the Central Bank of Egypt. And because what the Central Bank of Egypt has been doing over the past few years, it's always about intelligent investment solutions. So there's benefit for everyone. But then you mentioned something very important for you, Rami Ayman. It's about this level of awareness also of the people. We don't want it to come back, they have to pay from it, from their own pockets in terms of a higher tariff or something. But they need to learn the basics about the usage and the intelligent usage of everything. Got a very rich day coming along, so I don't want to take more of your time. I want to leave the floor to someone who has been, like I've been learning from him over the past few days with his great emails, with his enthusiasm and passion about the story. So before I call him on the stage, I'd like to thank you very much, our dear guest. Can you please go down to the main place? And I'm gonna invite right now my dear colleague Roberto Martin Hurtado, the Senior Advisor, UfM Water. Please take the stage. Thank you very much.